All right, how are we all doing tonight? Yeah? Thank you all for coming out. I'm very excited for this panel. The topic tonight is going to be building GTM tech stacks. I think we've all seen the two trends happening at once. It feels like everyone is adopting every AI tech that they can find right now, while at the same time churning a bunch of others, building their own stuff in Claude code, and like, how do you even make sense of it, you know? I'm seeing some nods. Yeah, it's absolute chaos. So we brought these four together to teach us and help us find the way. I can't wait to hear what y'all have to say. Let's start with introductions. Eric, you want to go first?
Sure. What's interesting about me? For gamers, I used to be a professional League of Legends player, was top 30 in North America. Learned a lot about first principle thinking in terms of like how to think about like many different variables. Co-founder, CEO of Virio. We help B2B companies go to market through primarily LinkedIn content. Today, we are the #1 LinkedIn content company in the market. The company's expanded a lot. We're now doing more like GTM engineering support on top of that as well. But yeah, excited to share more about some of the learnings. I think diving deep, especially into like warm outbound, content-led go-to-market motions.
Great. My name is Ghotbi, CRO at Reevo. If you're not familiar with Reevo, we're an AI-native go-to-market operating system. So if you think about capturing everything from initial lead all the way to close and putting that all in an AI-native tool set, that is what we do, consolidating most stacks that people are trying to figure out, to your earlier point. So that's what we're doing, and excited to share a little bit more.
Sweet. I'm Adi, ADI. I head growth here at Pylon. So as Cassie said, we're the agentic support platform. Also, as Cassie said, if you like our posts, we'll retarget you for a long time. So it's going to cost us money, don't do that. I'll pass it on. John?
I'm John. Nice to see everybody. First of all, huge honor to be with a lot of great people here, great companies, unicorns, also tools that we also use today in our day-to-day. I'm John. I'm the co-founder of Salesbricks. So Salesbricks is a deal closing platform that powers transactions for a lot of AI and SaaS companies today. One thing that we're super proud of at the company is about 4 years ago, I thought maybe we could go help companies sell their product via a B2B checkout. And so a huge inspiration for me was my sister. She built checkout for Tesla. It was one of the few things that people didn't think would happen or work. And fast forward today, they process over $200 billion worth of sales on that platform. And we're doing the very same exact thing for technology companies. You don't need to use a spreadsheet or a Word doc or 5 tools to close a deal. You use a URL link, and everything in the front office, back office gets automated. And we're super excited to learn more from a lot of these folks.
All right, thank you all. Let's kick off with a high-level question. We want to learn your perspective, context. Tell us 1 or 2 things that AI has changed in your product space in the last year, the biggest things you can think of. John, you have the mic. You want to go first?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm proud of this, but we had a product leader a couple quarters ago, and we no longer do. And that's because we built a product leader AI agent. And so we connect an agent to our database, into our code base, and a little bit of our other tools like our docs and our knowledge base, which Pylon powers for us. And within a few seconds, it understands everything about our business, understands what's not in linear, and automatically creates priorities and tickets for us so we could go build something. And so it's a very scary moment to share this, but it's one of the things that impacted us significantly, and we're able to move faster as a go-to-market team and as an engineering group as well.
Sorry, what was the question again? I'm kidding. I remember it. Yeah, I think just tagging onto that, the big shift is I think we're really buying like less tools than we used to. And I feel like many of the tools that we would previously have bought, we can just like make them now in-house. I think some early casualties are like attribution and reporting tools, like we're doing a whole bunch of it in-house. So I think that's one of the trends that we're seeing. Also, like I feel distribution is getting pretty commoditized, so the edge has moved to like brand, narrative, and positioning, like all exciting things. So I think those are some of the early things I'm seeing.
Great. Well, on the sales front, I think the thing that has changed the most, I would say, in the last year is the fact that you can pretty much automate every single administrative task. And so that fundamentally changes how a seller sells when they're not spending all their time actually doing all the things that you would ask as a sales leader of them to go update CRM hygiene, go do account planning, all the things that as a sales leader or as a seller was like the bane of your existence has now been completely automated. And so that shifts the focus entirely on the selling quality, which has been very eye-opening.
Yeah, in the content space, I think a big part is everyone is posting a lot more. I think a lot of people talk about AI slop content on LinkedIn. And so I think we're seeing a lot more of AI slop content on LinkedIn. I think the differentiation that we're seeing is like this like move to authenticity. And I think there's a way to do it with AI. I think one part is, I think we're seeing a lot more like photos, like perform better versus like text, like, you know, photos of yourself to be like, hey, like at least I'm a real human. But outside of that, it's like more personal stories, things like that are resonating better in the content space as AI makes it a lot easier to do like thought leadership stuff content. Like people want to know like your personal story of how you are applying these learnings. So that way it's not something that you could just like one prompt give to like, you know, an AI model.
Two of you just mentioned building things in-house a lot more than you were before. And I think no one's going to be surprised by this question, but I want to know how you choose what to build and then have to support long-term versus what to buy and outsource all of that. How do you make that decision? You have the mic. You want to go first? Sure.
I think like my employees hear me talk about this all the time, but I think we use the word ROI a lot. And I think everything just comes back to like ROI. I think a lot of employees don't really think about the hidden costs of like building. And so like we try to think about like extrapolate like mentally, what is the true net cost per employee, like their hourly spend, including benefits, taxes, all of that. And like, how long do we think it will take to get there? There's also maintenance costs that like people don't really factor in of like maintaining an AI app. And then it's also like, is this mission critical to the company or not? I think if it's something that's like mission critical, it's something that you probably want in-house. The other thing that we think a lot about as well is like data. Like, is this data that you would want to like own in-house? And like, do you want to like have and then how important is it from like connectivity to like connect with other apps? If it's like an app that does not connect with your whole ecosystem in a way that, you know, you could custom integrate yourself internally, like I'm less interested in buying that app if it's not super connected. If they don't have MCP, it's automatically like I'm churning probably. Like I was using like a financial modeling software, and over the last 2 days, I built my own AI native version of it that I think is almost better than it. And like, I'm not technical. And so, but the reason why I would have kept using it because it's just not worth my time to build it. But the reason why I decided to build it was because like, they did not have the AI features to allow me to like directly talk to it and adjust the models. Where I would have to do the old way of like manually adjusting it. They only had read access, not write access, and that like impacted me. I'm like, hey, this doesn't have the full features. So I think those are like just me kind of talking out loud of like a recent experience of like me churning off of like a software because like I was like the functionality was actually going to be lower than what I could build myself. Yeah.
I would agree with you on the ROI piece and just scoping level of effort to understand whether or not it makes sense to actually go and build something that is not your core focus. I think focus is a big topic for our company because when you have the ability to build anything so quickly, it becomes problematic because people go on, we call them side quests, right? So people are doing their day job and then they go on a side quest to go build something else that might support but is not our core focus. So there's a balancing and a reconciliation that you need to make around, all right, are we going to maintain this long term? What is the ROI? What's the level of lift? And will it scale? Because I think the scalability piece, you're a growing company, will take its toll if you don't think through it early on.
Makes sense. I mean, we heard from the CEO and the CRO, so I'll give you the growthy perspective. I think if I can build it in half a day, I'll probably build it. Unless it's like a system of record kind of tool, like a CRM, probably don't want to build that. If it's a support tool, probably don't want to build that because there's just too many edge cases and you're dealing with customer data. But I think anything that's like a narrow tool, I would probably see if I can like wipe code an artifact first. And then I think there's also the consideration of just velocity. For example, like if I have to buy an attribution tool and I have to now go into a 6-week buying cycle and then wait for it versus just prototype something small and see if it works and then decide. Also, I feel like rather than buying something off the shelf, you can customize it for how like your specific company operates, how your team operates. So there's also that. On the flip side, there's the risk that if you vibe code something and then you leave, becomes somebody else's problem. But yeah, so that's something to consider, just like the longevity and management of it, like after people who build it like leave and move on.
I'm going to maybe tack on a question before I answer. How many of you guys are in sales or is selling AI product? Even if you're a CEO, you're in sales, so raise your hand. I'm a little bit of an old school buyer. I bought a lot of software in my life. I ran RevOps for a bunch of companies, probably worth $20 million worth of software that I was clenching because I don't know if I'm going to get fired after buying it. So for me, what's really interesting is when I buy a solution, I use it as an opportunity to learn. So if there's a founder or a team that not only are they providing the AI product, but they're also saying, hey, you shouldn't do something this way. You should do it this way. Or this is what we see a lot of our customers getting value out, and you should probably try this out. That is a very strong signal for me that not only is it technology that I want to go buy or replace whatever exists in my stack, but like I do want to partner with that founder as long as possible, or the customer success person who has subject matter expertise. And that is a huge factor in the way I figure out, should I buy this solution or not? There are things that we build in-house, either from an engineering side, from a go-to-market side, but if I can learn something as part of the process of evaluating, it's a huge factor for me in where we spend our money.
John, do you have any favorite vendor partners that you look to as peers who you learn from like that you want to shout out?
That's a very good question. The one thing that sticks up to me, which I think is still relevant in today, even though AI has kind of changed the way that people buy and build relationships with vendors and buyers, is a company that I don't know if they're doing too well, but it's called, oh gosh, I'm freezing right now, but it's called Domo. Have anybody used Domo, which is a BI analytics company? The vendor experience or the buying experience and implementation experience was very, very rich. It was you buying the software and you have a person who's really committed to not about like you going live, but achieving the outcomes. And so no matter how AI is going to change the way you buy or sell software today, at the end of the day, people look for outcomes. Like, hey, I want to go grow Pylon 20x, 50x. Forget about the feature functionality. Like if you have a strong relationship with your buyer and you know what their outcomes are, you will figure out what features or how AI could be stronger to serve you. But I think a lot of the things we've lost in the buying process today is like that true relationship, and that like I will get you live, I will get you successful, I will get you the metrics or the outcomes you need. And I think everything becomes much smaller. So
Same question to the rest of you. Do you have any favorite vendor partners who you chose to buy from instead of build, and you really value that relationship? You've got the mic, Adi.
I mean, I don't go through a lot of vendor buying processes, but I can tell you that the thing that I don't think we'd ever build and continues to change the way I work is Slack. Like, and maybe I'm just old school, but like moving from email to real time, and then the workflows, and then the alerts, and like the integrations has really changed everything about my day-to-day, and I continue to be significantly more productive working out of my Slack environment. I don't work with them like as a vendor, like directly, but that is a tool that I use day-to-day that I would not go and vibe code.
Okay, I thought of one. We have a very good like deep partnership with this company called Ghotbi. And I think they are like a LinkedIn automation software. It's a very synergistic partnership where if they continue doing a great job, I don't see us ever churning, because we don't ever want to build what they're building, because we don't ever want to be in LinkedIn's TOS against LinkedIn TOS. And I think their business is riskier for us to touch. So we're like, hey, we'd rather outsource that. But all of our clients, like they want help with like warm outbound. And so like we do content, and then the way to make content perform really well to actually turn into ROI is to actually do the outbound with the content. And so they are like the outbound partner for Virio, but we don't want to touch LinkedIn automation, because like there's so many companies that have gone banned on LinkedIn, and that would really suck for Virio if my account got banned. Like we'd lose so much pipeline. So I think that is like an extremely synergistic partnership. And where it gets even better, like we've tested many different vendor partners for like LinkedIn automation. We've used many of them. I think a big part is like I got a chance to meet the founders like in person, invite them to our office. We built a really strong relationship where there's a level of trust, and I got to like pressure test their engineering team to be like, are they going to build the features that we want? So I think we're probably their number one vendor, one of the tops, definitely number one or two. And because of that, like the partnership goes deep enough where we basically dictate their product roadmap in terms of like what's coming up next. And I think because of that, it's a really great partnership. It's even gotten to the point where we've done like cross promotion. We've referred each other customers. We're working on like auto checkout, like, referring, even in their checkout feature, recommending Virio, like things like that. I think that's where the ROI of like, especially in B2B, I think a lot of us here in B2B, like it becomes like exponential value where you're getting more than just a great product. You're building like relationships, you're sharing customer bases, you're learning on product direction. We both have a lot of insights on the LinkedIn ecosystem as a whole. And so there's like that compounding learning and network effect.
You guys mentioned helping guide the roadmap, integrations, and the product that you buy serving roles outside of just the job to be done that you buy it to do. Ali, you're building a product that basically promises no integrations, one centralized place to do all of the things. Both of you at the end, Adi and John, you're building kind of the opposite, a point solution that integrates in with other things. Help us make sense of how to decide where that ends, because those two philosophies on the market seem to be a little bit at odds. Where are things going to consolidate going forward? Where are the roles of different products going to expand? Where are we going to be seeing point solutions succeed? Do you have any ideas on that?
That's a great question. I don't know where it will evolve to. I think for us, the people journey of capturing all the conversations, the discussions, all the signals that would indicate how do you actually get alerts to go and generate more revenue is within our domain squarely. So that goes into the marketing side, it goes into the sales side, it goes into the customer success side. Everything around that would plug in that isn't directly related to capturing relationship customer conversations, from my perspective, is not on our plate. But that's where we would integrate. That's where the line would be, at least as we see it today, but things are changing so quickly.
Why do you choose to draw a line there?
I think I caveated by saying that things are changing so quickly, so we may not. And I think if you were to ask our CEO what the sort of end-all be-it vision is for Reevo, it's a agentic marketplace that doesn't have any sort of correlation to human relationships. It's making sure that we can get whatever product that we want out into the market so that the other side, from a supply and demand perspective, can receive it. And that will take a lot of different shapes and forms. I don't know if that's like a decade out. I don't know if that's 2 years out. But I know that we're focused right now on making sure that our sellers and people that are talking to customers every day are getting the best experience from an agentic perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Adi, where do you draw the line between choosing to consolidate the products that you do buy versus choosing point solutions?
So Josh, if you permit me, I'm still on the previous question.
Okay.
I thought of my favorite vendor. That took a while. How many of you guys run ads on LinkedIn?
Ads on
Ads on LinkedIn? Not that many. So it's pretty expensive. That's the TLDR. So my favorite tool is actually this ABM tool called Factors. I really value my relationship with them because essentially the people at Factors, they have seen thousands of companies run ABM. I don't know the total spend that runs through them, but safe to say it would be hundreds of millions a year. So I just use my contacts at Factors as a learning pad to see what's working without wasting a ton of money, and just get up to speed on because the LinkedIn meta keeps on what is working on LinkedIn keeps on changing. So for example, incentivized ads work well right now, and so on. So I think that relationship is worth something to me because I get to learn a lot from what other companies are doing as well. And then back to the first question.
I'll interrupt for a second. I can also endorse Factors. They're great.
Yeah, they're great.
I'm really close with their team too.
Yeah.
Genuinely good, great team.
Agreed. And sorry, back to the consolidation question.
Right. When do you choose to consolidate? When do you choose a point solution? What's the thought process? Yeah.
I think for me, if it's something that's going to be a system of record, I would prefer to buy it. I don't want to deal with all of the edge cases that typically arise when you're I would not build a CRM in-house. I would not build a support solution in-house. There's just too many integrations, too many edge cases, and so on. Versus if it's something narrow, I would probably lean towards trying to build it in-house, especially if it's something I can do in half a day. But if the build is bigger than that and a lot, also I guess one dimension would be how many people are going to be touching that thing that is wipe coded. If it's going to be the whole company, I'm probably not going to wipe code it. If it's going to be just my team, then yeah, we have 13 tools we've built internally that we're using. So yeah, and then also I guess the integration complexity, if the tool needs to integrate with 30 other tools, yeah, I don't want to build that in-house. It's going to be a pain. Yeah.
Thank you. John, do you have any thoughts on that?
This is a topic that keeps me up at night. So by nature, our product is a system of action. So think of when revenue happens, we're powering it. And every one of our customers has this very, very unique permutation of tech stack. So are you on Campfire? Are you on QuickBooks? Are you on Stripe versus Airwallex? There's probably a million combinations of key products that our customers want to integrate into. I've had all these conversations with my engineering team on what to go build, but in a nutshell, it's really, as a leader, you have to figure out where do you want to go? What kind of customers do you want to go, and what types of products does that customer have? And then you go build integrations or you build partnerships with those tools. We're still figuring it out. So I'm still kind of a student here. So I'm learning. So maybe my moral of the story is be vulnerable if you're a founder. You don't always know the answers, especially to Josh's questions. And you're here to learn, and you're here to direct afterwards.
I do my best over here. Since you've got the mic, let's change the topic a little bit. We just talked about how to choose what to build versus what to buy. When you do buy, how do you choose whether to consolidate, whether not to? Let's talk about pricing. There's been a lot of conversation in the space over the past couple of years about changing norms in your pricing model, the shift into consumption-based pricing being the main one, but there's a lot of conversation there. Have you guys ever made recent buying decisions, churning from a vendor, or anything related to how to build your tech stack based on the way their pricing model is structured? Like, give me some insights from the buying side, not necessarily from the selling side this time.
I think I think pricing is very important as a consumer, as a customer of many things. But I think actually what's more important is the enablement that happens before pricing. So like, what the hell does your product do? How do I get access to that so I can figure out if it's something that can help me? I think a lot of founders are still tripping on that. So in order for you to think about pricing, you have to understand value yourself, articulate it in your docs or in your website or in a sales conversation, and then you can kind of own pricing, right? Like if you say, hey, I could give you or help you achieve these outcomes, then if your product is $1 million and you're going to receive $4 million, it's a no-brainer, right? So I think pricing is kind of the third base in the whole journey that a lot of people are struggling on, which is how do I go to market? How do I commercialize this product? So I think if you figure that out first, I think pricing becomes a lot easier. And again, I'm also figuring out pricing myself, so I'm a student here.
I think as a buyer, it's mostly around like predictability. I've had, I think, at least 2 cases of like big sticker shock where I burned through like annual allowance of something in like a quarter. It's always a bad conversation to be like, yeah, Mr. CEO, we're gonna have to buy that thing again because we ran through it too quickly. So I think just the ability to have predictability around like what exactly does this number of credits like get us. I think as a buyer, that's what I typically try to understand. And if all things equal, like I don't really have a preference between like seat-based and consumption-based. Yeah, as long as it's predictable. But I feel like sometimes consumption tends to be more like opaque as a user. Yeah, I'm sure many of you have experience with like, if you have like one clay plan and you give access to like your whole sales team, like random people will rip through like 50,000 credits and you audit your clay spend, you're like, what was that? So yeah, that's.
Yeah, +1 on predictability. I think that's the most important thing for buyers. They want to see value, but they want to also make sure that they are not going to run wild on a consumption-based model. I think all the rage right now is outcome-based pricing, but it's got its own problems because the definition of what an outcome can be is very subjective. And then the consumption piece runs rampant sometimes, to your point. And then there's people that are really comfortable with the traditional SaaS license annual spend model where they're very locked into a price point. But then there's, might be shelfware and they're not actually getting value from what they're using. I think it's important for vendors to be very flexible in this time because it's so dynamic. So giving an option for companies to leverage a pricing model that they see as the most advantageous is, from my perspective, the winning option.
Yeah, I'll give a couple different perspectives. I think one, from a buyer perspective, I think a lot about like risk versus reward, which is kind of like they touched upon both of them. It's like, I think as a founder, I'm willing to take risks if the reward is big enough, but there's like a limited scope of risk that you can take. And so I think that's something that you got to think about. And that's where in B2B, the pricing isn't the biggest thing. It's really trust. It's just how much do I actually trust that this business will deliver on what they say they will. And it's even like clarity. And can I de-risk that buying process by like, are they doing anything for me for free? Am I getting education? Are they, integrate, like doing things in advance to make me feel like, okay, this person will take it across the finish line. I think on outcomes-based pricing, I like what you said about like more like results-oriented pricing or performance-based pricing. I think that's something that we've thought a lot about at Virio, which is like, I think being in San Francisco, there's so many startups here that are raising money, growing really fast, and like we want to like really penetrate and win this market. And I think the way that a startup buys is very different from the way an enterprise buys. So like we've launched this new like results-oriented pricing and performance-based pricing, and that's been like doing extremely well with like startups because they don't have CFOs, they're not like counting, they don't care about, like as long as it's ROI, that's all they care about. So it's like de-risking it for them. And then we take more risk, we get more reward, right? But then when we talk to like the enterprises and the larger companies, like they are very scared about that. They're like, hey, we can't do that, this is too unpredictable. They want something more stock standard of like, okay, what are other companies doing? Hey, what are the results that other people are getting and what are they paying? And they kind of want to know something that's stable, like what you guys said. So it really just depends on like the cohort of customers that you're going after. And I think they have different like buying psychologies, and there's different like pricing models you can experiment with for each segment.
Let's shift gears a little bit more. I want to hear about how the different teams within your company are able to work together in better ways that they couldn't like 3 years ago. How has AI enabled all of your teams to work together in ways that are new just within the last few years? This could be tools you've bought that are maybe newer on the market. This could be things you built. Adi, you mentioned if I'm gonna need to build something that everyone in the company is using, maybe I buy that from outside.
Yeah.
Tell me some stories. You want to start?
Am I putting you on the spot?
Okay, I can start. That's fine. I think it's actually sometimes the opposite with AI, because but I think where it helps is actually there's a different level of excitement and empathy from non-engineers to engineers. It's a double-edged sword. I think there's a lot more to relate to, and there's more collaboration between non-product traditional roles and like product roles, because now we're seeing all the non-quote-unquote technical people like be a lot more curious to learn from technical people and how to like upskill with like Claude Code. And I think that's like really cool to see, is like the bridge between like bringing like go-to-market closer to product, because like there's just a lot more crossover in work now. But I think the flip side is because it's so quote-unquote easy, I put in quotations mark because it's not that easy to build a product these days. Like everybody thinks they can build this cool thing, but then like I think you were saying earlier, like everyone's building their own app. Do they like, are we doing repeat work? How many how much in lost productivity are we getting? And it's like, it's actually like anti-collaboration sometimes, because, and I think that's where everyone talks about like the second brain. Like, do you have like a really great database that allows like all of the learnings to come together? I think that's once you've got that system dialed, I think that's where you get a lot more of the collaboration. But I think most companies, I think for us, like we're still trying to stitch together and build a much stronger like infrastructure to like support development across like each function, to make sure that the data from CS is being transferred like very well. Like if someone in CS vibe codes something, it's being transferred into the things that sales is vibe coding. And so I think that's something that has been on my mind. Yeah.
Well, this is one that I get excited about talking about because I get to talk about my product. But Reevo right now serves as that brain. So all of our customer conversations, all our sales process, all our enablement, all our post-sales, when our engineers are looking for product feedback and understanding where they should take the roadmap, it's all in Reevo, and you simply ask it in natural language any question that you want, which is a beautiful thing in terms of your question, which was, how does that, how does the stack like the platform that we have help from a collaboration standpoint for all departments? The interesting thing that comes from that is now when you have a question, you just go to the system to ask. And so there's like the human collaboration piece that suffers a little bit, but you get full fidelity on the answers when you ask it from the system. So the productivity goes up, but the human connection goes down, and that's something that's really important to maintain.
It's a very good point. So I think like we have a similar example at Pylon where like the tool itself, it's a agentic support platform. So you have a support ticket that comes in. There's like when a support agent arrives to that ticket, there's a investigation agent that's already investigated that ticket. So like, if it needs a query in the code base, it'll like do that. If it'll read the full history of the account, so like, usage data, what have you. So everything sort of arrives pre-investigated. So there's of course a little bit of that loss of like, you don't now need like 10 people on that because it's just like agents talking to each other. But I also have like a specific use case, Josh, true to your or more original question of like collaboration between different teams. So because Marty, like our CEO, he's an influencer on LinkedIn, there's a lot of appetite within the company to post more content on LinkedIn. So we had this collaboration between the AEs and the growth team where we did this content agent for them. So anytime they would close a deal, there's a Slack channel we have where like all the closed won deals flow through. So yeah.
Is that us?
Another one.
Another one.
But also that one, yeah. So it'll like pick up all of the interesting deals. And when I say interesting, what it'll do is it'll go into Pylon and read the full history of the deal, like figure out like what happened. And if anything spicy happened, it'll like draft a LinkedIn post for them. And then it puts them in like a shared Notion so they can like still review it, like give it guidance. And then once they approve it, it'll automatically like schedule it for them in their LinkedIn account. So it's sort of like this human in the loop, like content flywheel. So I think that was a cool use case of agents doing the grunt work, but driving like good outcomes between the AEs and like growth team collaborating. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Mine's quick. There's a project I did with one of our support guys, Daryl. We had this like half a day slotted for, okay, we're gonna go pull from all of our customer conversations and Linear, which is our ticketing system. And then Daryl was like, why don't we just connect the Pylon MCP to Claude? And then it basically reviewed like thousands of conversations, and then basically told us, this is what you should build or fix in your product for the next quarter, for the next sprint. And rather than spending 6 hours of like doing the grunt work of extracting the data, we spent 6 hours really strategizing and making sure that we put into our roadmap the right things to go invest in. And I don't know if anybody had to work for a boss before, but imagine where the boss gave you a whole day to do something, and then the next day or the next week is to actually work on a solution. Well, we were working on a solution for the entire time, and it increases the quality of the work and just what you go focus on. So those are types of outcomes I like to see in vendors. So big shout out to Pylon and kind of like what they did for us there. But in terms of collaboration, that's how I see value. Is like you can spend more time collaborating and strategizing with your team versus doing the grunt work. So those types of tools make me very excited. So that's kind of my point of view.
Thank you. One more question, then we're going to get to Q&A. But I've really got to hear this one. Let's talk about predictions for the future, but I want to stay within the lens of where the people do the work. Ali, you were mentioning earlier the first vendor that came to mind. I'm like, oh, this is indispensable, and I'm not going to build it in-house with Slack. Everyone works in Slack. You have Slack Connect. If you don't use Slack, how are you going to talk to anybody? We all use it. So it's really hard to build something like that internally. Adi, you just mentioned Notion. So your team has agentic workflows that are feeding things to them in Notion, and that's one of the interfaces where they work out of. John, you were also just mentioning like folding a lot of that human analysis into an automated workflow and changing the type of work your people were doing, your team was doing. Let's talk about where AI might be a year from now, 2, 3, 5 years from now. How is the nature of our work going to change? What else might be folded into that AI middleware? What does work look like then?
Sure, I can. I thought about this before. So
Oh, I've thought so much about this.
came
I love
prepared.
this.
I can answer this from a marketing lens. I feel, and yeah, maybe you guys have heard this perspective before, but I think like increasingly the role of marketing is going to be like to be the taste makers of the company. So the edge is shifting from like, oh, how well do you run, like say paid search, or like how good your how good your distribution is, to like how good your brand messaging and positioning is. So just sharpening that and being closer to your customers. So actually the human element of like empathizing with who you're selling to and what they want and what they care about. I think it's increasingly going to be a time for that to shine through. So the teams that are going to succeed best are the ones who are like able to empathize with their customers the best and then present and market it in a differentiated way, versus just like somebody who's like running ads more efficiently than another team, or just the specific knowledge of how do you set up like a demand gen funnel on LinkedIn and so on. So it's a fun time.
I'll take my spot now. My one prediction that kind of keeps me up at night is particular use case for AI, which is buying things. And so one of the things that one of our customers asked us to go do, which was very eye-opening for us, is normalizing and making our order forms more eligible, not for the human buyer, but for all the tools that will start to be used for the procurement process. So approving budget, approving payments, and also doing an audit on security. We had to adhere to a lot of the formatting so that the machine can the machine can read it. And they said they were going to go build one day a team of agents that help do the sourcing and the valuations, and then all the buying processes from a legal, from a procurement standpoint. And to me, that's very scary. I don't know what's going to happen, but that is the future. And I think what's also really scary is, as a normal day-to-day consumer, right? You buy shoes online, you go to restaurants. We're going to lose that kind of like spirit of like being creative, making up our decisions through a normal process, and we're just going to outsource that to a machine, and the machine's going to tell us what to eat. And so that's very scary. It's very like Terminator type stuff, I think.
Does that outsource taste?
What's that?
Does that outsource taste, to follow up on Adi's answer?
We might be eating stuff from tubes really soon. So.
I think ads are actually pretty defensible in this regard, because I don't imagine any agent will like doom scroll on my behalf. So as long as I can get in the feeds, it's I'm pretty sure I'm hitting the humans. But yeah, it's going to be like your agent talking to my agent, and
Yeah, and we're on a beach, right?
we're on a beach. That's the hope.
A lot of people are outsourcing thinking already, so why not outsource those kinds of decisions?
Yeah, I mean, it's very dystopian. So if AI is doing everything and you guys are on a beach, what are you guys doing on the beach?
We're training the agents.
You're training the agents. Well, I actually think there's probably going to be a backlash on that. So like there's a bit of, like right now there's oversight on what the agents are doing. So, if it's in the coding world, it goes and creates a program, Claude, Cursor, and then you have like the oversight on it. And on the sales side, it does a bunch of administrative tasks. You have the overview of what's going on, and you approve it as a human, because we don't trust it yet. And at some point, the trust kind of just goes, right? And so then all of a sudden, it's doing all the administrative things. And so what's left is, I think, human-to-human connection and relationships and partnerships, and that becomes more important. And so I think creativity still is really important, because I'm not going to believe that AI is going to have more creativity than humans. I won't allow myself to believe that. But maybe, who knows? But Yeah, I think just human-to-human relationships, and that might actually, the pendulum might swing back that way when AI is doing a bunch of automation across all the like mundane tasks.
Yeah, this is something we've thought a lot about since the beginning of this year. We had like an all hands where we talked about what is the role of a human in this future like AI economy years from now. I think like already we're moving. I mean, we're in a bubble in San Francisco. I think we are a city that is so much more AI native than the rest of the world. So like everything I'm about to say is probably like 5 years ahead of time compared to everywhere else. But I think already we're seeing humans, like we are orchestrators of agents, right? So, we're clicking allow, and clicking allow, always allow, always allow. And we're trusting more and more of these agents to like make the decisions as it collects more data from us and from like third-party data, where it's even becoming like, oftentimes it sounds crazy to say, oftentimes it's even becoming better strategists than most employees. And so like it is moving, accelerating at a rate that is like crazier than we can even imagine, where it is better at thinking, better at strategizing than majority of humans. And that is continuing to compound. So even on the orchestration layer, we may not, we're doing like self-running agents, right? Like people are starting to run like self-running agents that, project, you have an agent that manages other agents now, and before it's like you're managing the agent, but now it's like the agent's managing an agent that's managing other, agents. So it's like, it's getting to a point where we are trusting AI to do almost everything. So it goes back to the question, well, what is the role of a human in this like crazy dystopian world, 5 years from now? We said this in all hands, it's to be, the aggressive language is to be a farmer of data. And I think that's where like the majority of companies popping up today, every company is becoming a data company. And so like where humans are uniquely advantaged is like we can collect data in ways that agents can't. So agents are very good at collecting third-party data and even first-party data through your applications that you build. And it can collect like third-party data in terms of like scraping online. In fact, even like ads, you can have an agent doom scroll for you and collect all that data. It can collect data on almost everything. But the things that it does not collect data on is more of like the personal conversations. And so that's where it goes back to what you're saying around trust. And so like the roles of like humans, it's even more on like client-facing roles, like account managers, recruiters, salespeople, because the data that we are collecting through every single conversation, through the note takers we capture, it's like I can do discovery in a sales call and learn about a business, and that is data that no one gets access to because it is guarded, but they are unguarding it by actually telling me that information. For us, we're very uniquely positioned to collect a lot of very valuable data where we do content interviews for like very successful CEOs, and they share with us their roadmap that no one else knows. And that's data that we keep very guarded. There's like, we won't share the business plans, but we get data on how CEOs think across the board. And so there's a lot of really interesting data that you can capture through, even recruiting. We've been thinking about like the company brain internally, like can we productize recruiting and outbound to get like the highest conversion rates for recruiting, the highest conversion rates for outbound, the highest conversion rates for content. Everything is just a data game, and data is just trust. So like, how do you build a relationship where you can build trust so that way, this is crazy. I think I'm probably oversharing because this is stuff that Zuck gets canceled for about like who do you trust with your data and stuff like that. But it's like really the real advantage for the companies that will win in this new economy is like which companies will actually be trusted with the data and data that cannot be scraped online. And I think that's where the role of the human will be so valuable because like no one's going to trust an agent as much as a human. So the human's role to me is in an AI world to be, sounds fucked up. It's like, sorry, my language, it's a farmer of data.
Okay, I actually have a question for you on this. So if we, as growing companies, have a moat of data.
Yes.
And there's this big push to have an open and integrated platform to MCP and to frontier labs to aggregate all that data. Are we giving away our moat? And does the pendulum swing the other way?
Yeah, this has been such a popular discourse recently with like Palantir, like Alex Karp, right? I think you talk about that, how enterprises, this is the one thing they will not give away. And I think like yeah, I think that is the most valuable asset that we have as companies, and like enterprises are realizing that they cannot give access to that data, and it's why people are now building their own models internally. Or your vendors, like we sign contracts with like enterprises where we spend a lot of money on lawyers and time just to go back and forth on like what data we can or cannot access. And so, yeah, I think that is like an interesting thing where I think it's something that, we as a startup don't care about that much about protecting. Like there's certain data, like proprietary data, but like more like company data of like how we hire, like, okay, like that's fine. But like, the data that we will not give as much away, that's because that's our competitive advantage, is like the content data of like the, millions of posts that we analyze every day and stuff like that. Like that's stuff that we will not give away in our learnings. So I think like, every company has their own proprietary data. When I'm showing like Pylon, you guys have like, your proprietary data on like what like great customer support looks like. And so I think that's probably data that you would not, expose like fully to others, like all the nuances on that, yeah.
Any other final thoughts before we switch over to Q&A? All right, let's do it. Raise of hands.
Hi guys, Ilyas here. Thanks for the great panel. It's interesting that the name of this event was Less Stack, but we heard from all of you guys that you guys are building applications every day. So I would argue that it's actually more stack. But it's great to see that you guys are doing more revenue and more growth with more stack. We are a cybersecurity company, and so I loved your points, Eric, but I just wanted to understand from the four of you, what are you doing in terms of governance? In a world that everyone is building what they want, you're giving everyone within your companies access to everything. Inherently, something is gonna go haywire, right? So Eric, I loved your points, but I just wanted to understand from the rest of you what you are doing in terms of governance. Thanks.
I think it's whether it's, the age-old problem of shadow IT and people going and acquiring their own tool sets. I don't think it's new in this world of AI, although you're handing over more information. So the risk of exposure, I think, can go haywire pretty quickly. We're doing a lot in terms of trying to ensure that the tool sets that our employees are using are all wrapped in a mandated, managed instance that is vetted by security, and we monitor all that. But it's I think like permissions and access to content is more pervasive than ever now, and I think it's a real problem. I think you're probably in a really good space.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like the specific applications that you're building, and like, does it have access to customer data? Like, is it public facing? So I think depends on like how mature the security posture is of the org, and then just like adhering to that. So for example, like a lot of the tools that we build, like in marketing growth, like they don't deal with customer data. They're typically not customer facing, so they're like fully internal, using like marketing data. So it's like less of a risk versus like, I guess, somebody that's building like on top of, say, like support data, or for you guys, like content data and so on. Yeah, but ongoing problem, I guess.
I think like one quick thing that we thought about is like when you're vibe coding these apps is just like creating procedures on like, because anyone can access these apps. Like you could search these up, like especially if you deploy it online, like password gating, SSO, making sure that if like creating processes internally where it's like if you're gonna deploy something publicly, like even if it's an internal app, someone can search through. One of our clients is one of these types of companies, and like one of their outbound strategies that helps them get customers, it works really well, is because people will vibe code apps on their platform. And then what they do is they go, and employees at enterprises will vibe code apps. Fortune 500 companies will vibe code apps with their software. And then so what they do with outbound is they'll go through these enterprises and the people that are building apps will be like, I just found this website and it shows all your customer base. It shows all your, like, and they could literally like just scroll through and find it. And a simple thing such as like setting up, you could vibe code SSO, right? And so like just a simple thing like that of like password gating or like, login gating with, a domain and just making that like a mandate. And this is something that's been very recent for us because like, we just recently are starting to really invest in like scalability as a company, and it's really enforcement of process. I hate this. I'm a founder through and through. Like I'm like the opposite of an ops person by default. But so much of this is just like enforcement, and just like you can set rules and processes and all of that. Humans, the error is not usually like the technical error. The error is usually a human error of not following the rules. And so it really is just creating a culture of like enforcement.
Questions? Any other hands up? I see one. Oh. Here you go.
Thank you. Thank you guys for all of this. I think it's very interesting. I think we talk, I'm coming from France, so I'm not in the SF bubble. I work for a YC company. And I feel a big part of the YC bubble, the SF bubble, is data is the moat, big data, look at my agentic agent. From a GTM perspective, I feel agents for dev tools, Anthropic, Codex, made the average engineer better. Not because of data, because also of taste. Because engineers at Anthropic are better than the average engineer. I feel for GTM, the average BDR still sucks. The average CSM still sucks. The average AE still sucks, even with the best agents. So I want to have your thoughts about, I think the moat is context, taste, and data. So I want to have your opinion about this.
Do you mind if I address this one?
Go for it.
So I just had a board meeting today, and this is fresh off my head. I think the average BDR sucks is maybe a misstatement. I think the average BDR is competing with a trillion other BDRs. And so as the market of tools expand, because we've democratized access to build the product, like even your grandma could be a founder and go build a tool. So she's going to need a BDR. And so everybody has a BDR. And so the competition and the ratio of like buyer and seller is just flipped upside. And I think that's the key observation I've had is like, there's a trillion tools out there, and there's a trillion phone calls people are probably getting today. And so that's the real nut of it, in my opinion.
I would add to this and say, BDRs are usually earlier in their career, and I don't look at it as them sucking. I do think you're right. Like it's harder than ever for a BDR to stand out or a seller to stand out when there's all this noise, all this AI slop. On the flip side, the ability now to take a look at the skill set of what is working and what's not. Like what's important to me, the transformation that happened at Reevo was we took away all the administrative burden, and so we were solely focused on skill. Are they good at storytelling and inciting a customer to get interested? Are they good at objection handling? Are they good at negotiating? And you can actually quantifiably look at that through qualitative analysis and coach to it and improve people and have them self-coach and look at where they went wrong. And that's never been something that has been possible in my experience in my career. And so whether they suck or not, like they will improve. And if they don't, there's not really a place to hide. Like it used to be quantitative metrics were the way to hide. Are they making enough calls? Are they sending enough emails? Though their open rate sucks. But now you can actually look at what is the quality of their conversation. And it's a totally different perspective from my angle. That's my experience. Anybody else?
I think I echo what the other guy said. Like, I think the average SDR is still better than the average like AI-generated email, and doubly so for like phone calls, which I think is where the edge is. Like, I feel like exceptional SDRs on the phones are like something else. Like, I think I heard like one phone call where one of our SDRs, like he called somebody and they just like stonewalled. And they were about to hang up, and he was like, what if it's the best thing you've ever heard of? And then they were like, sure, like, I'll give you 20 seconds. So I would like to see AI do that. Yeah.
Did you want to add something? It looked like you were grabbing for the mic.
I think one thing with AI, it just makes the best people better and the not as great people. The gap is just way bigger than ever before. And so it's even the way we think about it at Virio internally for like hiring, where I think you just have to invest way more cash, way more equity in your talent to give them the incentive structure where they can actually, so you can attract the best people, because we do believe now like a superstar BDR can do, our philosophy internally is one superstar BDR, GTME, whatever you want to call it, can deliver more output, like higher quality output than 5 BDRs before. Now I think cold calling is a different thing. I think cold calling like human, 100 out of 100, right? But when you're talking about email outbound, LinkedIn outbound, stuff like that, it's like what we talked about earlier, it's about taste strategy. Like you need to have like an intuition and have a deep level of empathy and understanding of the problem set. Like you have to be a very strong strategic thinker to be able to architect the right campaigns. And I think that's like something, the gap is like people see, and actually we think about this as a company where a lot of people see AI as a scale thing, a thing that unlocks scale. I think the best AI native GTM engineers are, they don't see AI as a way to deliver more volume. They see AI as a way to deliver more quality. And so it's like, how do you pull like better signals? How do you pull like data across the internet? How do you scrape really niche data that a human would not be able to get to deliver such a perfect message that they're like, how did you know this about me? Like I was in the right time, in the right place, and you're delivering them the thing they really want. And that's really a skill thing. Of knowing how to architect the AI. And it's the same thing we think about like content, which is like, everyone thinks it's so easy to create content, you could just tell, but it's like, there's such a big gap now between like a really great, let's call it content engineer or like an average content engineer, because it's like the best people, they know what to prompt the AI. They know what to look for. If you just tell ChatGPT or Claude like, hey, make this post, blah, blah, blah. If you don't know what you're trying to get from it, or if you don't know what data sources to pull from to make your post even better, there's a limit of what is like possible. And so I think that's where there's like a huge gap. And I think that's a gap that you're talking about, because you see so many people optimizing for volume, but I think it's a reframe. The best AI native employees today are thinking about AI for quality, not quantity.
That's very true. I'll also add something in. Salespeople to engineers isn't an apples to apples comparison. Like Ali was saying, we haven't really had the ability to measure the performance of a salesperson in the moment, in every conversation, quantitatively. Like looking at how they're performing, what they're saying, the words they choose, the tone of their voice, the way they respond to an objection, and like quantifying it and scoring it. That only really just started to exist a few years ago, and it's still like only okay. It's gonna get better. Whereas for engineering, you don't see the bad engineers at all of the companies that you're interacting with in the world. They're like inside the company struggling. When you see the code as a buyer in the market, like hopefully it works by then, or at least to the, for the most part. Also, the number of open sales roles has been shifting into the highest performing AI companies, and like companies that have been struggling or like cutting their teams really hard. But the demand for elite sellers is on the way up. There are more senior AE positions being posted quarterly. It's rising quite quickly. But the number of SDR positions, junior sales roles across the software industry is actually falling right now. So we're about to see a gap where, like, where are we going to find the senior salespeople who are really, really good? That's going to become a problem too.
Quick follow-up on this.
Yeah.
We use Pylon. Thank you.
Yeah.
We use Pylon, and kudos to them. I do believe the product has some opinions, and I think did nudge our support team to be better. And just to follow up on this, I do believe the reason you're buying an agentic system is not buying SaaS. Salesforce doesn't make you better. Zendesk doesn't make you better. I do believe if you're selling agentic GTM software, it should serve the average guy, but it should have some opinions to it. It doesn't have to be the company's opinion. It doesn't have to be Pylon's. But if my head of CSM has some opinions, I think the agentic systems should give that context to the employees through the agentic software. So if you're a CRO, you're not the one doing cold calls or BDRs or templates. but you probably have a better opinion than ChatGPT or Claude about it. So I think the debate I was referring to is, I do believe it's the responsibility of agentic GTM software to help give opinions and make the average guy better through data, but also taking that CRO, taking that head of sales, head of CSM opinions through that. Same for CPQ, I think. So that's, I think, kind of the debate. Should agentic GTM software have opinions or reflect opinions, or just keep the data there and hope for good runs?
Have you guys seen that happening? Have you guys seen the AI systems that you're working with becoming more opinionated?
Yeah, so Reevo does give opinions. I actually get in a lot of arguments with the opinions that it comes up with. But it's giving an opinion and a suggestion, and it's an evolving opinion, right, based off of data that it's seeing. So it changes its opinion. And I think it's a critical point. It needs to make everybody better versus the legacy way of doing things.
And with that, we're going to have to stop the session. I'm sorry, we've run out of time. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for paying attention. Can I get a round of applause?
Thank you.